Hello, everyone. This is Eric Gibbs with Gambling News. I'm here today with a man who has a plan. This is Steven Salz, the founder and CEO of Rivalry, an esports, sports betting, and sports media company based out of Canada that is targeting innovation and a new generation of gamblers around the world. Rivalry has experienced rapid growth, especially this year, and has facilitated more innovation in the industry while helping to attack the gaming ecosystem. So thank you, Steven, for joining us. It's a pleasure to speak with you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Definitely, our pleasure. Now, you have significant experience in the gaming industry, but prior to your direct involvement from the business side, did you have any involvement from the recreational side?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was younger, I used to play a lot of games, like probably a lot of people in my generation, and with my brother and friends and everything like that. And then my twin brother and I did play competitive games, like, or semi-competitive, I guess you could say, because this is like early 2000s. The esports or like competitive gaming structure was not at all what it is today. So in the context of what was possible then, we were definitely playing in a fairly like competitive format, which was fun, and then continued to be a gamer my entire life, and obviously I'm still today. And then professionally went into capital markets, so kind of investment banking industry, et cetera, and then eventually merged the, let's say, regulatory, finance experience of an investment banking role with, personal passion of gaming, and brought those together to really create Rivalry.
Nice. What is your favorite game?
Right now, it's a game called Valorant. So it's a 5v5 first-person shooting game, pretty new. So it's the publisher Riot Games, which is owned by Tencent, and their primary game is League of Legends, which is like the biggest esport in the world and the most bet on esports as well globally. And their first game in more than a decade since the release of that game is Valorant. So it just came out. So I play with a bunch of people at the company. It's very fun, somewhat addicting for sure.
Nice. And have you gone to the professional tournament circuit, or is this more of a hobby for you?
Definitely more of a hobby. I don't have the time to play in that way. So yeah, the last couple of months, I mean, very low single-digit number of hours. So not playing all that much these days. But nice. Yeah, it's very recreational.
Esports definitely has a lot to offer in general, and in particular now with the way the whole betting industry is moving. There's a lot going on and a lot to look forward to. Now, Rivalry has really risen rapidly in the industry over the past couple of years, and you recently went for a direct listing on the Toronto Stock Exchange. How has that been going since you launched on the TSX?
It's been good. I mean, IPOs are always volatile and uncertain. The first couple of weeks or first couple of months is whichever way the wind is blowing in the market. So we'll deal with that kind of first little bit, and then continue kind of on our way and executing the way that we always intended on. The reason why we went public, and why I think many sports betting businesses go public earlier in their life cycle than a typical like tech company. Rivalry launched fully in August of 2018. So it's been really just over 3 years of like operating Rivalry, even though we spent a year or so getting the license, building the tech, et cetera. Most tech companies go public 8-9 years in their life. So it is early, but there is a operational speed gain that comes with being public. And that's like really why we went public is there's this speed unlock from a regulatory perspective, new payment providers, raising capital, even everything. So it's really just allowing us to execute faster was the goal.
Were there any unexpected hurdles you had to cross when you went for the listing? You have background in finance, obviously, and the sports world, but that doesn't necessarily always translate into a smooth process when it comes to the bureaucratic red tape. How was the process for you?
I mean, an IPO, which a direct listing is basically an IPO. It's in terms of the amount of work, like the full prospectus and documentation, everything you have to do. So it was 8 to 10 months of a huge amount of effort for sure. But I'd say the only thing that was really a hiccup would be explaining the nature of the regulated online sports betting industry to the securities regulator. So they're not that familiar with how like Isle of Man licenses work. And we recently earned a license in Australia, just like the whole structure, how it comes together, what are legal markets, what are illegal markets, anything related to kind of domicile. So yeah, it was more just like explanatory to the securities regulators, like how does this industry function, where do the risks lie. That was really the only thing that probably created some friction.
So in other words, apart from Rivalry being one of the pioneers in the esports betting industry, it's also a pioneer in helping future companies find their spot with an IPO or a direct listing, because now regulators have a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more experience dealing, with companies in the market. I certainly expect to see others, follow suit. There've already been big companies joining, going public, and there will probably be more in the future. Now, your backyard, Canada, they are finally getting into expanded sports betting operations after way too long. Have you already started to see any benefits from Canada's new gambling laws, or is it too soon?
It's too soon. So everything was passed in August, and then the applications opened in September for the just online gaming applications. So, and it is anticipated the first real licenses will be issued like end of the year, early next year. So the market is not like fully live yet. And the way that it works here is what happened in the US. So in Canada, it's provinces, US it's states. So US it's state by state legalization. Canada is doing province by province legalization. Ontario is the biggest province in Canada. And I think based on the numbers we've seen, it would be like the 5th largest state in the US in terms of sports betting turnover. So it is like an important market. We know from many offshore sports books like Bet365 and others that have been great market operators here forever that it is really important. So I think we'll know a lot more early next year, but it is exciting. We actually have a license that would allow us to accept Canadians currently as a gray market operator, but being physically based here, we never wanted to really take that risk. And it just, we never had any intention of leaving Canada. I mean, we're very much kind of like a proud Canadian company. The entire development design sportsbook team is here. Our main office is in Toronto. My co-founder has been in startup scene here for 15, 20 years. We love hiring developers here. It's just a great place to live. So yeah, the intention was always to kind of have this as a home base. And if and when Canada regulated or provincial regulation happened, then it would just be like the cherry on top. So definitely excited about it. Makes it legal for us. And next year we'll see how things go.
There's definitely a lot of movement going on right now everywhere, and it's interesting to see how things unfold. Based on what you have been doing, though, what has been the response to esports betting in Canada? Has there been a lot of interest in seeing it come to the surface?
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely the demographic for it here, and there is viewership and interest in esports here from a more general level. People watching on Twitch and watching the major events, playing games. So there is a huge audience here. There is a bit of a pro scene. Some of the major players on the global stage are Canadian players across like a ton of the different esports. So yeah, all the factors here seem to indicate that there definitely is an appetite, and we're excited about it. So yeah, like I think once it's legal and there's a product that is more consistent with what that demographic and generation is looking for in Rivalry, then it will, it should bring a lot more interest, I think, to the market and to the country for sure.
Definitely. And that leads me to the next question. Talking about the new generation and what's coming, what is some of the innovation that Rivalry is preparing for the sports betting market over the next couple of years?
It comes in a few flavors. So I guess the first one is just we built the entire product from scratch. So we don't use any white labels. We built the front and back, and everything is originally developed in-house. The analogy we've used is, what like Wealthsimple in Canada did, or Robinhood is, more familiar example to people, is they did not reinvent the wheel on how you monetize investing. They do it the same as Charles Schwab and TD Ameritrade and E-Trade, and everyone has done forever. They just built a brand and a user experience that is super consistent with what a new generation that kind of grew up on the internet is expecting from those consumer experiences. So for us, like, we think there's just general product innovation throughout Rivalry, even the way we onboard users, KYC, the way that the kind of the wallet works. We've got this thing called Rivalry Academy that's like an education component of the site. So like everything on the site being originally developed and designed was done in such a way for that user experience to be consistent with what the next generation is looking for in their consumer experiences, like broadly. And then more specifically, I'd say, we've got a game we created called Rush Lane. So even our first foray into like casino, we did not white label or use any third-party casino. We actually built the game ourselves. So we went into Toronto, into the indie game community. We built a fully licensed by GLI, fully legal regulated version of casino game that we think is more interesting and applicable to that generation. So the concept is in gaming, you have a thing called MMORPG, which is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And we call this like an MMOGG, massively multiplayer online gambling game. And it's a multiplayer social casino game where users on the site that have gamer names, like gamer tags and everything on Rivalry, they enter the game. Their username actually populates into the game. We're going to have more like customizable avatars. They proceed down a cyberpunky kind of marble race meets Mario Kart type track, interact with each other, and the like hitting power-ups, having a kind of attacks against each other, interacting with the map, and the map changes every single time. So we update this thing like a video game where there's constantly new tracks, new features, everything. And we'll be adding more games into that universe. So it's kind of like a game lore that we're creating around the universe in which the game lives in, and being able to add more games into it. We've rendered like an underground bar called Rush Lane After Hours that we run as a promotion with our brand partners, where they sit in like a fully rendered Blade Runner type bar and they like hang out with their community. Their community watches them play the game. So we had almost 12,000 people concurrently watching one of our partners play the game just the other week. Users will then sign up to want to play with them. So yeah, it's a complete like top to bottom entertainment experience, much more like a video game. It's not rapid like a slot machine. Like it takes a minute and a half, 2 minutes to complete. And yeah, it just has a totally different flavor to what it is. So yeah, so it's always going to be just like ongoing site innovation for the core product mixed with things like Rush Lane and other types of games and products that are like completely unique and like bespoke for the demographic.
Rivalry sounds like it's completely creating an entire universe from scratch. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds over the next several years as it gains traction.
Yeah, I'd say like we talk to
develops.
people about this, like under 30s and our users like 18 to 25, they do not bet like their parents did. Like they
Right.
use sports betting much more like a entertainment experience. And we've also explained it the way where people were so confused why, GameStop and AMC stocks were going crazy early this year, but it's the same person. Like the guy who's buying GameStop as like a meme is the same person that's kind of betting on Rivalry from a demographic perspective. But the reason why they were buying GameStop is yes, they wanted to A, hopefully make some money on the stock, but B, it was like a ticket into the whole experience of it, being on Reddit, being on TikTok, like the whole clout, just the insanity of like what was happening. And it was fun to like buy into it. And the way that users bet on Rivalry is similar. Like they want to make money on the sports bet, like nobody wants to lose a sports bet. But there is definitely an element we see of entertainment. They want to be like supporting the team on Reddit, on Twitter, again, taking pictures of their bet slip, talking to their friends about it. It is like a very different kind of wrapper that is like required for the product to be consistent. So yeah, we think there's a lot of innovation required to make it work really well. So
yeah, definitely, I would imagine so. There are a lot of variables that have to be considered right off the bat, but also as the entire industry evolves, it will have to be changed as well to respond to the demands that come in the future. So it's definitely going to be an interesting part of the larger equation. I'm looking forward to seeing how things go.
Yeah, Gen Z and young, and I'll let you ask your question after, but I mean,
No, go ahead.
Gen Z and young millennials are, as in people under the age of 30, are 40% of the global population, and Gen Z is more than a third. It is like the largest generational cohort in history. This is like an inevitable generational tidal wave that are looking for a completely different experience. So it's while everyone else is kind of still obsessed and focused with like the core better cohort, which is fine because the profitability and everything is different for a early to mid 30-year-old and up. The under 30 demo is just gonna it's gonna be like a takeover in the next couple of years, and everyone's gonna have to adapt very quickly to make it work.
I think you're right, and I know you're right. You can see hints of that now with the way the gambling industry is moving. There will always be those that prefer the brick and mortar stores. There will always be those that prefer the digital alternatives. But even apart from that, there are trends that are so predominantly noticeable in the industry, and they are almost split along the generational line. So, it's easy to see how the next generation of gambler is not looking at it the same way, like you mentioned, as the older generations, and it is more of an entertainment um, activity than just a straight gambling activity, which is the way a lot of the older generations have viewed it.
Yep.
And so that the next several years, the next 10 years, and even the next 15 are going to bring about, I think, substantial changes in how the entire gaming industry is viewed and what is expected of operators, of developers, the types of entertainment that is presented to the consumer. It's not going to be, I believe, remotely close to what we're seeing now.
No, there's also ease of use. I mean, there's a whole new competitor on the playing field, which is crypto. So there are many decentralized betting exchanges. They call themselves prediction markets, which is just a fancy way of saying you're a sports book. But they are like totally, I mean, they are technically completely unregulated, but they are offering sports betting and sports betting exchanges. And it is essentially zero friction. You QR code your crypto and you're done. So those guys, I mean, there may be a reckoning at some point for those guys, but ultimately the technology is now there on the internet where you can never really eliminate that in the way that you used to with some of these more unregulated sportsbooks going back, 5, 10, 15 years ago on the internet. So those kinds of products, we are seeing a huge amount of interest from a different type of bettor as well that feels better served by that because there is no friction. So then the other thing we discuss internally all the time is that battle and good versus evil in a way of how do we offer a fully regulated product where we work with regulators, work with policymakers that is also doing everything it can to reduce the friction of the experience so we don't lose long-term to these like essentially frictionless betting experiences that are now cropping up and gaining like a lot of prominence for sure.
So Rivalry is interested in operating some way with the cryptocurrency ecosystem.
Oh yeah. It's also the same demo. Again, if you had a Venn diagram of someone that like legitimately uses crypto, not just speculating on it, but actually uses it and buys NFTs and all this kind of stuff, and our user, it would be like an overlapping circle. It's the same person, to be honest with you. Yeah. So we talk to investors about this a lot. We don't actually, in almost all of our markets, we do not bump up against sports betting competitors. Like it is very rare in our marketing channels or anything that we're going toe to toe with any of the existing sports books, whereas they're kind of off battling each other constantly. We run into more, users spending money on different NFT projects or NFT games or crypto related projects and things like that, where that's also part of their kind of, call it speculation, entertainment type wallet. And like, that's more what we think about when we look at competitors or we look at wallet capture we're going for. It's not, can I take a Bet365 or Betway guy and make them a Rivalry user? That isn't really in our sphere of like concern, I would say. Yeah. So, and I think that the way that we have those different competitive concerns, again, as the generational tidal wave continues, the, let's say, older or more mature sportsbooks are also going to have to contend with those kinds of concerns. Yeah, they don't realize that like it's coming right now. I don't think like nearly as like acutely as we do.
Of course, and the entrepreneur, the business owner that can realize that what's coming is the one that's going to survive when it comes. Those that are so blinded to innovation and future developments are those that get left behind. 10 years ago, if you told MGM and Wynn that they needed to consider online gambling, they would have told you to beat it. They would have had no desire to get involved. Look at them now. Digital is the future. And the companies that are willing to embrace it, like Rivalry, are going to be much better prepared to welcome the next generation of gamblers. So it's you definitely have it hit the nail on the head with what's coming and what the future bettor is going to expect from the market. Where is Rivalry right now concentrating most of its growth efforts. Are there any particular jurisdictions that are weighing heavier than others?
Not really. I mean, we're Isle of Man licensed is like our foundational kind of beachhead global gray market license. So we do operate fairly globally within the context of where we can. So, South America, Southeast Asia, a few of the EU markets where it's still legal, places like that. And that is most of the business right now where, again, we're available and legal. And I'd say like the cleaner gray markets, like we're not in China or places like this. We do not focus on those areas at all and have no active business there. And then we recently earned a license in Australia. So we'll be in Australia shortly. So we are expecting to launch there obviously before the end of this year. Ontario and Canada, expecting licenses to be issued hopefully in the coming months and then be active there. And then we are looking at various, I'd say like M&A opportunities where we would be buying into certain licenses in the EU and elsewhere where they're not really issuing new licenses and you have to go in by way of basically picking up somebody else's or operating under somebody else's license. So we definitely are very active in that regard as well.
Nice. It definitely sounds like you have a lot going on right now, a lot of big plans for the future. And it is amazing to see how much growth is happening right now in the entire global gaming industry. You have a lot of irons in the fire, as they used to say. And we talked a little bit about how trying to introduce esports betting can be a little complicated. There are typically more hurdles to overcome as your traditional sports book is not that familiar with it and isn't ready to embrace it. How are you addressing those challenges?
I'd say esports betting is actually kind of more native for our demo. So it's less, I guess, are they familiar with esports betting? It is more like the fundamentals of sports betting itself. So, they do not understand handicaps. They don't understand certain markets. So what we usually do is we'll take some of our brand partners. So we have more than like 120, 130 partners, which are like content creators on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, very active on Twitter, Instagram, like influencers basically that are relevant in our key markets in gaming and esports. And some of them are, let's say, betting heavier or betting focused, and they will provide and produce like educational content. They'll put up a video, using Microsoft Paint in a very kind of ironic way, explaining like how does a handicap work and things like this. And then we also have on our site something called Rivalry Academy in multiple languages, and it explains everything from how to manage your balance, how to play certain sports bets, responsible gambling, explaining again more obscure markets like handicaps, etc., how they work. And we even have it integrated as part of a system called Quest. So Quest is like a engagement program. It's like our version of VIP, but it is not as, let's say, like bonus heavy as a VIP program is. It's more of a I don't like to use the word gamification, but it has like elements that are more engaging, I guess you could say, than a typical VIP program. But it's not always stuff like place a certain number of bets or more bets or parlays or deposit. A lot of it is, play Rush Lane or consume content on the site or watch a esports stream on the site, or it is like go to Rivalry Academy and learn about ABC. So we actually like push people directly into education. So it's really top to bottom. It's like everything from our social media accounts, our partners accounts, Rivalry Academy, our Quest system. It's like education is like strong throughout the entire experience, really.
Nice. Awesome. And I'm sure that's been really successful in the community as well. Apart from your big global planet that you're developing, what's the next big move for Rivalry? What's on the immediate radar?
I'd say like we talked a lot about the new markets being Australia and others. Like these are huge focuses. I mean, every time you launch a new regulated market, it is a lot of work, like operationally, people, hires, etc. So that is just a big focus. And then innovation in Rush Lane and like our owned IP, owned casino games. The thing I guess we haven't touched on, but we have almost like a third of the company is dedicated to this, which is our creative side, like our media side. So most businesses, I think any consumer business targeting people under the age of 30 also doubles as a media company. It's just like a default because I saw some stat today that people under the age of 30, some guy from an investment bank said to me, they use social media to search for the things they're looking for more than search engines. So like Google and major search engines are actually losing ground to social media. Like they will look to a social media account first to determine like the legitimacy of a product they may or may not use or a brand, or even just like looking at like generally like how to find certain thing they're trying to do or consume. So it's a huge focus. We've got like 25 plus social media channels. We have more than 600,000 followers in almost all of our markets. We have like the most followed account of any betting company, both esports and traditional sports. The monthly measured engagement into Rivalry's properties is more than the aggregate of all of our competitors in esports betting. So we've built the most like engaged esports betting brand globally. And then we have a portfolio of IP, whether it's like partners, shows, like owned shows that we've created on YouTube and elsewhere, our Rush Lane IP, and we're always developing that. It's like that is a huge focus for the company. Is to put it simply, like we want Rivalry to be known as just a company that puts out cool shit. Is what we say internally, honestly. So
Nice.
If you're social media and content now is like the storefront for a company. So our entire user lives on the internet. We are not going to grab them by putting a display in a physical storefront or having a physical shop ever. So what used to work for retail on that side, that's what social media is now for consumer brands. Is users go there to see if you're real, who you are, what your like tone and what your energy is, and especially people like under the age of 25. So yeah, we are extremely focused on making the brand equity resonate in all of our key markets with that demo, and like that is a huge focus for the business, and it will be next year as well, like investing a lot more behind like production capabilities, and becoming like a veritable media company, honestly. And it works very well for us in terms of reducing cost of customer acquisition, building customer loyalty, everything.
Nice. It definitely sounds like you have a lot of really good projects in the works, and a lot of wonderful things to offer to the community. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things develop over the next 12 to 18 months. So it's going to be very interesting to see Rivalry 2 years from now and see how much larger it is and how much more of a role it plays in the gaming industry. So Steven, this has been a great conversation. I'm walking away just thrilled with the knowledge that I've gained, and happy to have been able to share this time with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
It's good. No, like thanks, Eric, for the opportunity. Always like having these conversations, can talk about the company, ad nauseum. So yeah, it's nice to have a platform to do it sometimes. It's great. Thank you.
Awesome. No, definitely our pleasure. And I really look forward to having another conversation with you down the road to see how everything is developing. So thank you again, Steven. Rivalry is here to make a dent in the sports betting world, and it's on track to do so, and will continue to make a difference for years to come. So thank you, Steven, and we wish you the best.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.